It's good. That was right where it should be. Right where it should be. Should be. All right. What's up, everybody?
We just
I am a producer extraordinaire.
we're not going to to acknowledge. Hey, Anna Griffin, Ty, Graham, David Tyson, and Jasmine Almond, McNeil Almond.
Hey.
Hey, thanks for jumping in here early, guys.
What's up?
Glad to see you on this beautiful Monday night. And we're in Evans. We're still in Evans,
We,
Georgia.
we are still in Evans. It's Monday,
Yes.
y'all.
Oh, it's Desmond and Ty.
It's-
All right.
Okay.
It is the Graham Experience.
All right. The Graham Experience. Is
Yes.
that the page? I thought it was. Oh no, it's rated G.
Rated G.
Okay.
This is not rated G. No, this. You are rated G. We might be PG-13.
We're at. Yeah, most times I think we're PG-13.
Probably.
Sometimes. What's the next one up? 17 something like that. I don't even know the ratings anymore.
NC-17.
They made it all complicated.
Not for children 17. We're NC-17 probably.
Probably,
With mostly PG though, for the most part.
for the most part.
Something like that. Greg Anderson, thanks for jumping in here, joining us from YouTube.
Hey, what's
Glad you
up,
could be
Greg?
here.
Good. Hey, good
Yeah.
to see you.
Yeah.
Welcome. So, all right. Notwithstanding
You're in the right place at the right time, notwithstanding
those technical difficulties, hey, welcome to Monday, y'all. So,
Well, I
we
just
are-
enjoy how you shouted yourself out.
I did.
Yes. Good job, Mike. You did that.
So, listen, it seems like it's only been a week. It seems like it's been a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah. You remember what we talked about last week?
Barely.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
No, you know why you don't?
Why?
Why barely? Because we're kind of out of that boat. We were talking about, that how the fall kind of races up on you as a parent who has a kid that you're going to be putting out there into the world. If you remember all that,
That
right?
was last week?
That was last week. And
Letting
so-
them go, sending them forth. But we didn't really talk about empty nesting, right?
Well, we in effect, I mean, indirectly, yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
But we're not talking about that tonight.
Yeah, I saw something. Hey, Robert Harrell, thanks for joining us. I saw something that said, we don't have an empty nest. We just had a successful launch. And I'm like, okay, it's all
I mean,
in how you
whatever
look
you
at
want to
it.
call it. I mean,
And the truth is, even if you successfully launch your baby birds,
Yeah.
it doesn't mean that they won't come back. And so this idea of, I think we need to give ourselves a little bit of grace and expect a launch and then a second launch in some cases, right? And that's okay. It
Yeah.
is okay if they go and it turns out to be too much or not what they thought, or, the economy is crazy, whatever it is, they should have a soft landing at home, but it should be to visit, not to stay.
well, yeah. Present day, that happens a lot more than it did. It's a bit more difficult to launch.
Yeah.
Now, right? But I'll simply say this: you don't know if they're coming back. Just celebrate hard while you can.
Yes.
Whatever. Just enjoy every day, and if they come back, they come back. And sometimes you'll find that's an absolute blessing too.
Yeah,
It's
that's
not-
true.
It's
That's
not
true.
It's not a blessing. I'm not asking for it right now though. But whatever.
Yeah,
I'll receive that.
we've had that
but-
conversation a couple times in
Yeah.
the last few years, right? And I think I always lead in with, you don't want to come home, right?
No, and I say, oh, you don't want to come home.
All right, Stefan Simmons and
Hey.
Linda Tyson, thanks for being
Welcome,
here.
y'all.
Glad you could join us in the Marriage Shop tonight.
Welcome.
So this whole idea of whether you're sending them to college, you're sending them to a trade school, to the military, or community college, or wherever, the idea that they are grown and flown is not necessarily true for all, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that we just need to establish a little bit of grace, a little bit of space for those young ones, because just because they come back does not mean they failed to launch. It just means that they haven't found their place just yet.
Yeah. So having said all that,
Hey, Dana Stokes.
if you're struggling, hey Dana, if you're struggling with that, last week's show is a good one to watch. So
Yeah.
we encourage you to check that out last week if you're kind
Yes.
of going through that transition and still trying to adjust.
Yeah, because for some
but-
people, it's really hard to let those babies go. But that was last week. So
Yeah.
that was the quick
They can't
summary
keep
or
up.
teaser. You can check it out. Carolyn Bird, thanks for joining us.
Hey,
Yes.
so and a happy birthday shout out to Diane Reeves. I think her birthday is actually today.
Okay.
So,
oh, my friend, happy birthday, beautiful.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And my cousin KC. What's today's date?
It was yesterday, I think.
Yesterday or the day before?
It was this week. Happy
This
birthday,
weekend.
KC.
Happy birthday, man.
Yes.
Yeah. So anybody
yeah.
else? Anything else to shout out?
No, if you had a birthday or an anniversary this week and we didn't know about it, but we'd love to celebrate you too. So just let us know. Happy birthday, happy belated birthday, happy anniversary, happy belated anniversary. Whatever it is, we'd love to celebrate with you.
Yeah.
God has blessed you with another year of something. So that is cause for celebration.
You know what? I'm celebrating.
What are you celebrating?
I'm celebrating you and us to some extent. So because we restarted our fitness journey recently,
Yes.
and I think this week makes like a month, or last week maybe like a month or so
Yeah.
of consistently getting going, getting out there
Ooh.
and getting after it in the gym a little bit. And when I say getting after it, I mean relatively speaking, right? This
Yeah.
is not the 25-year-old getting after it. This is,
This is the over 50 getting after.
yeah. So which means not even really getting after it, maybe getting beside it.
Hey, Byron Jackson, thanks for multitasking. We appreciate you listening.
Way to go, BJ. Good to see you.
Yeah, that is cause for celebration. We have talked to several couples who that whole fitness thing is such a challenge.
Yeah.
It's a challenge individually, but it is a formidable challenge when you're both trying to do it, or one's
Yeah.
trying to do it and the other one's not trying to get on board, or whatever the case may be. And so doing that together can be a challenge. So we
Yeah.
want to encourage you, find a way, if that is something that you want to do, just find a way to at least get up and go together. You don't have to be together every single second, right? And so I don't wear things to the gym that would cause people to stop and give me extra attention, because then that would take away from whatever Mike is doing
Oh, my
wherever
goodness.
he is, and vice versa.
That's so funny. Yeah. Don't want to
Yeah.
be petty at the gym. That's a whole nother show, whole nother topic. But that's funny.
Yeah, we finally decided to the money we were investing every month needed to be put to good use. For sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I have enjoyed doing that with you, baby. It's hard to get up, especially on a Monday morning, but we got up and we got out there. So
That's right.
Good job.
Yeah, no, thank you. It's amazing. So there's that. And I also have to say there's another small miracle that occurred. How on earth did the Raiders beat the Ravens?
Oh my goodness.
How is this possible? What?
Gardner Minshew.
Any given Sunday? I don't even know. That's amazing.
Oh wait. There we go.
So, and I elected, as you all know, I've called myself in the past a die-hard Cowboy fan. This year, I'm just, there's no way off of the bandwagon. It's what it is. But I don't have to give you all my energy. So this year, I say they're getting 60 to 70%, which keeps me emotionally safe. And so,
Yes.
which was the case this weekend. Oh my goodness, horrible.
Yeah,
So-
it's an interesting ride as a
Yeah.
fan. And what does that really mean? And as you bring that up, you all know I'm a Raiders fan, Mike's a Cowboys fan, and it's been a lifelong thing for the most part for both of us.
Yeah.
We don't fight about it, but it kind of ties into what we're talking about tonight. So what are we
Yeah.
going to be talking about tonight?
We're talking about this political season. It's interesting. Yeah, I think it's the perfect time of year. Matter of fact, the only time of year to be talking about something like this. By the way, before you jump off the football thing, I'm not giving the Cowboys love tonight. I'm giving my hometown something I can rely on.
Oh my goodness.
Straight out of P-Town, baby.
Yeah,
That's
well, I was
Portsmouth,
going more
Virginia.
with a house divided. So a house
I know.
divided, I've seen a whole lot of license plates and people with jerseys
Oh, yeah.
split in half. showing, their loyalty to whatever their
Yeah.
team is, but embracing whatever their spouse's team is, and all that. And so we can come together or be apart on several things. So it could be sports, it could be what are we going to have for dinner, or where are we going for dinner. It could be what to watch on TV. We've had a couple of conversations with people like, I don't watch what they watch, right?
Yeah.
I go in my own space and watch what I want to watch, while he or she is in their space watching what they want to watch.
Yeah.
We've heard that and we've seen that.
Yeah.
And then for us, we just we're sitting there, but I think we check out.
It depends. I mean, I would check out in place.
Yes.
You will tend to check out, and then for a while, and then you're like, okay, I'm being here.
Yes.
Which I think that some of those, and a lot of those senior couples will often, they'll be like, hey, she's over there doing this, I'm
That's
over
right.
here doing that, and it just works for us. Right down the street, good friends of ours.
Yes.
I mean, he has his whole setup in the garage.
He sure
The
does.
chair, the TV, little table, everything. And that's where you can find him a lot of times.
Yeah.
And his wife is like within. I didn't realize if you swing the door open, like you can
Right.
you can look
About
and
20
see
feet
her not
away.
that far away, kind of
Yeah.
doing her thing in her space, but they're still connected in some way, right?
Right.
So that is yeah. So
Yeah.
it's a way to
Compromise.
it's to compromise.
Yeah.
There's a word.
I
Yeah.
mean, and marriage is about compromise. In a lot of ways, it just depends. You don't have to try to force fit some things, especially when you find yourselves on two different sides of it.
Yeah, but yet here we are. We find people, particularly in present day, and it's always challenging to I don't know, put things in perspective with regard to how it compares to how it was. Like we'll oftentimes that recency, right? We'll say, hey, this is as bad as it's ever been. This is as good as it's ever been. It's never been like this.
Interesting.
Commonly we'll say that, right? Because we're in it and we're living it, and it feels so real and present. I don't know that that's the case all the time, and certainly tonight what we're talking about, because I must imagine that couples have often been on different sides of the political spectrum, and they've gotten married, and they've had these disagreements of places where they don't necessarily align politically.
Yes.
I must imagine that's happened in history. Has to
Yeah.
have happened. However, right now what we know is it happens, and it happens quite a bit.
Yeah.
How
yeah.
often does the data say?
Would you say how often? What?
Does the data say?
Oh.
I think you saw something on that. Did you?
Yeah, I think it says something like 30%. Nearly 30% of married households are bipartisan. That's what I read. There's a lot of research out there. You were reading an article, but as I was saying, this was kind of prompted not only by consuming everything. Every time you turn the news on, every time you turn the television on, there's an ad, right? We're Mike and Wendy, and we approve this message. David Tyson, hold on, before we get to that, David Tyson Jr. says, started going to the gym together last week, too early in the morning for me. Yeah, I get that. It
Yeah.
could be, you got to find the sweet spot, whether it's early in the morning or late at night or sometime in the middle of the day. But if you can get up and go, get up and go. So this idea of being on two different sides of politics, it's interesting because there can be a lull in that, right? It may be one of the conversations that you didn't necessarily have before you got married. It could be something that just didn't come up until you supported a candidate or there was an issue that you were concerned about. And so now it's in the forefront of what you're talking about, right? There's a, if you don't have feelings about it either way, I mean, we know people that didn't vote for years because they just weren't vested in it. It was like, okay, everything's fine, going along to get along. But until it lands on your front porch or until it affects you directly, then all of a sudden our attention is piqued, and now we're paying more attention to what's happening. Do you
Yeah.
agree?
I do, and I think that's part of the problem, right? Something that maybe didn't come up for years, but during certain times of the year, it percolates up.
Yeah.
That's kind of part of the problem because it suggests that in your day-to-day, this is a non-issue. However, it becomes an issue because it's an issue somewhere else. And so we have 5 points. I think we'll be able to get to them all
Okay.
tonight, but I think that it's important to really kind of break down a little bit what's happening and maybe what you do about it if this is something you face. So, and by the way, our focus is really focusing on different sides of the spectrum, right?
Yeah.
If you're in a home, bipartisan is when he indicated two different parties or what have you. That's kind of the focus. But I would suggest to you that everything that we're going to put out there tonight applies to your relationships in general.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And if you are married and you're on the same side of the political spectrum or whatever, I think it's important not to get caught up in all of this because we still bring a lot of that energy into our homes, into our conversations, into our relationships. And sometimes you just got to let it go and let things just cool down a bit. So I think there's something to take from this conversation for everybody.
Yeah.
But certainly, broadly speaking, you've heard us say that marriage, actually, the marital relationship, is a model for how you actually love everybody.
Yes, we've definitely said that
Right.
here and brought out that point.
Yeah. And so I think every point, if you pay attention to it, will line up in that way as well.
Yeah,
All
my
right.
friend Dorothy Brandon is on. Thanks, Dorothy, for being here. I did invite you in, so I appreciate you dropping into the Marriage Shop. If you just joined us, we're talking about being on two different sides of the political aisle within your marriage, and how can a marriage thrive or survive if that's the case. I mean, we certainly know that's difficult. Lisa McNeil said bipartisan is one thing. Opposing values can be a little different. Definitely harder to navigate. Yeah, you're right
Yeah.
about that. And we're going to get into that a little bit.
Yeah, because I think if we're talking about different values, we're almost having a different conversation. We'll kind of we'll talk about where that comes up.
Yeah.
Right?
So this weekend we were out and we pulled into the parking lot. You were about to return something to a store. I was going to go to another store. And a lady walks up and she's standing
Oh.
outside the window. And I was like, no, thank you. And then she taps on the window. Tap, tap, tap.
I'm
and
like,
I'm
don't
like,
tap on my window.
oh, man.
So-
She's tapping on the window. What is going on? Hey, Brian McNeil. And so I roll down the window and she hands me a little flyer and she's like, basically this is just information. I'm trying to give these to everybody because, I'm all about having a free choice and a free mind, and I want to do what I want to do with my body. And I'm telling women, it doesn't matter what your husband is doing. Your husband could be a Republican. You could be a Democrat. You have a right to vote for who you want to vote for. She went on for about what? How long would you say?
I don't know.
Like 15 minutes?
It felt like an hour, but it's probably like 10 minutes.
It was 10 or 15 minutes. And she was like, really, really pushing the point, pushing her views. And she was like, and my husband is probably saying, come on, get in the car, leave these people alone. And we were certainly in the car going, oh my goodness.
All I want to do is take these pants back in here and get this refund.
Right.
Back up.
But
Back
it
in
was
my door.
it was an interesting thing. And
Yeah.
so more often than maybe we even think, we find that people have opposing, views. Yes, as it comes to politics and who their candidate is and who they want to back in the next election. And given that this is an election year, it's a timely topic.
No question. And so I think the thing that stood out with everything she said was this idea like, hey, you can do what you want to do and he can do what he wants to do, or vice versa.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, that's true, but there's a way to have peace in your home, right?
Yeah.
And so ultimately, there's a lot of political battles that are happening. That battle just doesn't have to happen in your house.
Correct.
All right. So let's get into a couple of these things
Yeah.
that can help you to not battle in your house.
Okay,
Yes.
but before you do,
Yeah.
you were looking at an article that was talking about an increase in the number of divorces in DC.
Yeah, so it was an interesting article. It's actually UK based article, but generally speaking, divorce rates are said to be slowing down actually, right? Which suggests people are staying married longer. However, in DC specifically, divorce rates are increasing and tend to increase around election season.
Yep.
Right, and that rate is almost double if you look at millennials only.
That's
right?
true. Yeah.
And
yeah.
so, because people are on opposing sides of the aisle politically, and they can't work it out. I think 1 in 10 marriages in oh actually that was in that another article actually that's not DC. I think it's a little the rate's supposed to be higher than that, but that's fascinating to me. Like how political season can potentially result in divorce.
Yeah, I mean,
What?
it definitely gets your attention,
Yeah.
right? It's this whole idea of, is this something that is irreconcilable, right? Can we not reconcile this thing, and is it so important that it is more important than our marriage?
Yeah.
So that's a
Right.
question for you. And again, people always say, oh, we're going to stay away from the politics conversation at work. We're going to not talk about politics during Thanksgiving dinner when we have all the family around.
Yeah.
We're going to avoid those areas that tend to touch or push people's buttons, but we're going there tonight.
Kinda. I mean, no, we're not. I mean, we're not.
I mean, we're talking
In that way.
politics, but in the context of how to
Right.
work it out in your marriage if you find that the two of you are on different sides.
Yep. And so,
Okay.
like I said, this help you in almost everywhere. But
Yeah.
number one, okay? Number one. Can I do number one now?
Yes.
All right. Number one, y'all, is to know the game. I'll put that in the chat, actually. Know the game. What do I mean?
Yeah.
Political leverage is about actually dividing and putting people into specific camps so that you can increase your voting power. Understand that, first and foremost, that's what it's all about. It's about votes. And the way you get votes is you put people in camps, you align them, and you come up with a set of values and beliefs and things like that, and then you simplify those things and you say them over and over again, and you get people who believe in those things, right? Not everything, certain things that you focus on. You get people collected together. And the more people you have, the more people, theoretically, you have to vote. That's what it's about, right? So you got to know the game. That
Yeah.
is the game.
The game is to build your camp. And the camps are not just built, during the political campaign. The camps are built on social media. The camps are built on news media. And so once you choose your camp and you settle there, then everything that you consume within the chosen camp supports those things that you described.
That's right. And so understand that the focus of any political campaign is not for you to have a happy marriage, right? For you two, you and you. It's not, their focus is not your happy marriage. Their
No.
focus is votes. So if you're listening to me, if you feel me, put know the game in the chat. Know the game. I need to know y'all are getting this. Because if you understand that, then it should begin to shift your perspective a little bit on how you react and respond to some of the things that you're hearing and seeing. And why you see what you hear and see. You don't hear and see everything.
Right.
And if you look at commercials, in fact, it's a comedy show in terms of how these commercials, how video is edited, and
Yes.
people's statements are stitched together. It's
That's
pretty funny,
good.
right?
Yeah.
And
yeah.
so why? Because you have a message and you want to promote that message, and you don't want to deviate from that.
Yeah.
Think about how that compares to your marriage and the conversations that you have, right? If you decide this is what I'm saying, this is where I am, and I'm not deviating, think about what that produces in your marriage.
Yeah, think about that, because some of you live that out daily, whether it's about a political issue or not. Sometimes the personality that you have lends itself to being emphatic about everything that you believe, right?
Yeah.
You approach things with passion and conviction.
Yeah.
I know this to be true. I know this is what it is, and you will stand behind it 100%, right? Willing to fight to the death over what you believe. That kind of ties into what Lisa was talking about in terms of values. But I think that we have to just kind of pan out a little bit for a larger view and just slow down a little bit for a deeper view. That the Wakefield research that I looked at talked about how in 2016, when Trump was elected president, 1 in 10 couples, that's what you were talking about, 1 in 10 couples ended relationships over their political differences. And then for millennials, it was twice that. And so that was 2016. In 2024, the political landscape is completely volatile. It's so up and down, in and out, around and around. We don't know who's on top. We don't know why, and things can change in an instant. That's just kind of the nature of the game. Yeah, thanks for dropping that in the chat.
Yeah, thank you, Dana. Thank you, Jasmine. Hey, to put it in there, know the game, right? That's the first thing you have to do, because then you understand where the battle is and who's battling, and whether or not you want to be in that battle, right? But remember, the game is to get political leverage, you got to get people in camps, all right?
Yes.
All right, so that's number one. Number two, stay away from the fringes.
You typing that in there? Stay away from the fringes.
Stay away from the fringes. Put it more simply, like move to the middle in your relationship.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'll put that. That's how about that? Move to the middle.
Move to the middle. So that whole idea of not settling completely in one camp or the other, right? Those extreme influences, that's what you're talking about?
Yeah, because extreme viewpoints, right, that are polar opposite are antagonistic to marriage.
Yes.
And oftentimes, those extreme viewpoints lack nuance. We'll talk about that in a second. But it's like the way that you influence people in mass is you make it really simple, right? And then you put it way out there so that people can choose their side. But if you're choosing a side and your spouse is choosing a side, oftentimes that can be a problem. Mark 3:24-25 say this: if a kingdom is divided against itself, that kingdom cannot stand. If a house is divided against itself, that house cannot stand. And if Satan opposes himself and is divided, he cannot stand. His end has come. This is in the context of people questioning Jesus and saying that what he's doing is he's doing it with the power of Satan. And he's saying, well, that doesn't make sense because I'm casting out demons.
Yes.
So how is it that Satan, who's kind of like, he is the chief of demons, how is it that I'm working against, right? So obviously I can't be casting out demons in the name of Satan, right? But this idea that if a house divided against itself cannot stand, it means that, like, you can't, as a couple, how can you stand together if you're fighting each other over some things, by the way, that oftentimes can be irrelevant to your marriage? It's all about talking points that'll come in from the outside.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's really the point, right? So you can be, you could be a house divided. What I mean by that is each of you can have your own political viewpoints. You can have your own parties of choice. You can have, your own mind, your own thoughts, and be different because you are different. You were different before you met. You were different when you got married, and you will be different for the duration. But the idea of allowing something external to come into your home to introduce division is where you have to stand united, right? So understanding, okay, yes, I like action movies and I like horror movies sometimes. My husband doesn't like those things all the time. Oh. Here's the thing. You said no. Nope. But here's the thing. I'm not going to allow my desires to overtake his, right? And so I'm not going to minimize what his desires are in order to selfishly support and fight for my own. That's where it's different, right? And so, again, I said you're free to believe, free to support, free to be whatever camp you choose, but do not allow that thing to cause division within your home. In your marriage, in your home, you have to be unified. And in being unified, that means that a couple of things also have to be true.
No doubt. And oftentimes, a lot of the arguments we're having, from a political space, you're talking about people who intrinsically they share many of the same values. Maybe they disagree about how to get to a certain place and how to do a certain thing, but oftentimes the values systems are aligned for the most part. And so that's why I advocate to stay away from the fringes, because in order to get people to move, if you can't build a political movement by saying, "Hey, everybody, we're all aligned on these things," right? No, you got to get people to see the things that pop out that maybe we're not aligned on and go and reach for those. It's a losing proposition for marriage.
Yeah.
Right.
And one thing that we've learned within our marriage is that we can reach a saturation point in terms of what's coming in, whether that's news, the latest thing, whatever. And so I think establishing a boundary on what you take in is also a good thing to exercise, right? This whole idea of, okay, it's okay, you can watch the news, you can get caught up on the latest thing, all those things, but don't allow it to overtake your life. Don't allow it to overtake who you are and how you are with each other.
Yep. And so, those are just the first 2 points. Know the game.
Yeah.
Stay away from the fringes,
Move
or
to the
move
middle.
to the middle. And as you can probably begin to see, I said that a lot of these things also line up with how we deal with other people.
Yes.
Right? Can you see it? Hopefully you can see that. Right? In fact, if you can see it, just put "I see it" in the chat.
Okay.
Just so I can know somebody sees it. Okay, so number 3. Okay, know the game. Move toward the middle. Number 3 is pursue and acknowledge truth. Here's the deal, y'all. The truth is the truth and a lie is a lie, no matter who says it. Oftentimes, and you'll see it on TV, right? There are people whose job it is, and hopefully you can see this. There's people whose job it is to go on. Some people call them pundits, some people call them talking heads. But these people are hired to go on to news outlets and to send a certain message, right? Their job is not to necessarily seek the truth. Their job is to make the points that they were sent there to make.
Yes.
And so as you sit and you watch and you consume, it's really important to pursue and acknowledge truth, no matter who says it. Because if we can be honest about what we're seeing and what we're hearing, then a lot of the arguments and tension go away immediately. Because if somebody, even if you support them, if they say or they do some foolishness, you should be able to say, okay, that's crazy. That's not true. That's some foolishness, whatever, right? We should be able to do that. Because when we can't do that, then it's almost impossible to have a conversation in the first place.
Right.
Right.
And I think that's where a lot of the tension can come in, right? It's like we're talking in circles. And the reason for that is because I think that we start out with this attempt to change our spouse, right? Get them to see our side, get them to see something different, get them to follow something different. And the truth is, it's not your job to change your spouse. We've talked about that before. So avoid trying to change them, right? Instead, focus on the ways and the things that are alike between you. Have more to talk about, more to discuss, more to do than to focus only on politics, right?
Yeah.
Regardless of the time of the year or how many days are left, you shouldn't be waking up every day with a big clock on the wall that has a countdown to election day. Not in your bedroom.
Yeah.
And so while it can feel consuming, you control how much it can, and prevent it from consuming your marriage and your relationships.
Brian said, don't fall for the banana in the tailpipe.
Oh, my
Bringing back that
goodness.
old Beverly Hills Cop from way back in the day. Yeah, exactly. It's, excuse me. To pursue and acknowledge the truth is really showing love, right? Because the word says so. 1 Corinthians chapter 13, 6-7 says, love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth.
Yes.
And furthermore, it always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Love should be well beyond any political affiliation, any election year, right? I mean, that shouldn't even be a question. So often, but we hear people say, man, I didn't know this is how you thought, or,
Yeah.
I didn't know that you'd go for that particular thing or this particular thing. The love you have for one another should transcend everything that tries to impede on your home.
Yeah. Say that again.
The love that you have for one another should transcend everything, anything that tries to impede on your home. Is that what I said?
Yeah, that's what you said. I mean, because this
Yeah.
this whole idea of, and again, pause and ask yourself, is this candidate, is this party more important to me than my spouse? And I think, at the end of the day, if you can't answer that question honestly, and your spouse is the answer, then I would advise you to really seek professional counseling in a situation like that, because that can be quite damaging and destroying to the relationship that you have if we're just keeping it real, right? Because there's no way to talk yourself out of that. If your convictions are so deep that you would be willing to leverage your marriage, your family, and your other relationships because of it, then you really have to take a look at and clarify your values and beliefs.
Yep.
I'm going to get off of that horse, but I'm
So,
just saying.
Yep. Byron Jackson, once again,
Yes. Coming
is
in with the word.
getting ahead of the points.
No, but he's right on.
No, he's right on point. I'm
Yeah,
saying
yeah.
we're going there. We're going there for sure. So,
Yeah.
all right. So, number one, you got to know the game
Know the game.
because you're all up in it.
Yes.
Number two, move to the middle. Number three, pursue and acknowledge truth.
Yes.
All right.
Don't allow politics to take center stage in your marriage.
Yeah. So, number four, got to embrace nuance.
Say more.
Well, I'm going to say more. I'm going to put this in the chat real quick. Number four is embrace nuance. All right. Politics and persuasion often ignore nuance and promote broad generalizations. Why? Because nuance is complicated. That's why. Like all these if and thens. It's why people, when they ask me, I'm a psychologist, for some of y'all who might not know. I'm a psychologist, and people ask me, why is this? Why is that? And I'm like, well, it depends. And they hate that. It's just like, just give me the answer.
Yes.
But the answer is often complicated and it's multifaceted, and to really understand it, you gotta research and, dare I say, read. Right? We don't have time for reading. Tell me what to believe. Right? And all of a sudden, people are giving you what you want. Right? Here, believe this. Right? And you don't need to, all you need to know is what I'm telling you, right? But oftentimes those conclusions are very broad. They lack nuance, and therefore they lack really true and deep understanding.
Yeah. That's what I was going to say. They lack depth.
Yeah.
And you have to consider the source.
Mm-hmm.
You always have to consider the source, because it's easy to find
Yeah.
articles, posts,
Yeah.
news stories that support your view, that reinforce your view, that validate your position.
Yeah.
But you always have to open it up, again, pan out, so that you can have a broader view and a broader understanding, because a lot of those things lack depth.
And here's the crazy part, and y'all know this to be true. If you begin to look at all the places where people tend to consume and get information, and where those influencers are coming from, Twitter or whatever, X, Instagram, YouTube, just internet in general, if you really read, you will see that most of the information that you see, most of the things you hear are drawn from very narrow sources. Oftentimes those sources are not even good sources, but there's little new information, right? Because we want it fast and easy. First thing we see, that's what it is. But if you really try to dig and find more, that takes time, actually.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and I think sometimes too we get caught up in this whole idea of, I'm going to vote for or follow the person that is going to make life better for me right now, not who's going to make life better for everyone in general, or for our children in the future, or our children's children.
Or we want to talk about values. Like where do I find like really Christ-like values? Where do I find biblical values, like actually not just spoken, but actually lived.
Lived.
That's much more difficult to do. I don't care what side of the aisle you fall on.
Yeah.
That's challenging.
Yeah.
All right. So,
Hey, Robert Shepard from Garland,
hey,
Texas.
Pastor,
Thanks for
what's
joining
up?
us.
And
Yes.
so, but embrace nuance, because everything should compel us to ask the next question, not to drill deeper on our point.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So if you're going to be a married couple and you're in this thing and you're, taking in information and you're having conversations, you got to embrace nuance and realize that no matter what you know, there's always more that you don't.
Yeah, and I hate the saying "agree to disagree," but this is one of those situations
Sometimes you
where
gotta do it.
it might just be the way out if you have a whole lot of created and intentional tension around this particular topic that we're talking about. This might just be one of the things that you put on the shelf where you agree to disagree, or at least you respect and you honor your spouse's differing view. And so you don't necessarily have to disagree, but you're agreeing that you disagree. That's probably more specific.
Yeah,
right?
I like
We're
that.
agreeing that we disagree, but
Right.
not agreing to disagree.
Yeah. Now come on over here, girl.
Nuance.
Let's get this food.
Nuance.
Let me give you a little kiss on the face, right? Because ultimately, it's important to be able to do that. Critically important to do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Right. So, and by the way, don't try not to get caught up with extreme statements like, if this happens, then this won't be a country anymore. America won't be America. All the things that you tend to hear. Look around, y'all. America has been around for a while, and part of the reason it has survived as such is because of the opposition, right? Think of it as iron sharpening iron, but it drives the country in a certain direction. Doesn't let it go too far in that direction, and oftentimes you see it gets pulled back, right? So over the course of time, there's this average that happens. Certainly, there are some things that are problematic that you hear, but don't get caught up in all of the rhetoric and all of the hype in terms of what's going to happen if this one thing happens.
Yeah.
Is God in control or is He not? You got to decide that. You got to
Yeah.
decide what you believe about that. All right.
Yeah.
Embrace nuance, y'all.
And at the same time, I mean, this whole idea of it's not all or none, right? If you discover that your spouse has a differing view, is supporting a different party, has been supporting that different party the whole time, and you're just now becoming aware of it, understand that that's not the only element of your spouse that drew you together. It is one thing in the whole scheme of things. So you talked about how love should overshadow all those things, but practically sit down and think about all of the things that your spouse is, all of the things that you love about them, the things that you loved about them from the time that you met them and until now, the things that you continue to love about them, all of the list of the good cannot and should not be overshadowed by this one area where you may diverge.
Right. Because if that were the case, your joint would have crumbled a long time ago. Because there's so many areas. If you think about politics is crazy to me, right? Because there are
Yes.
people who, you're in. It's like football, actually.
It is.
Like we're up in AT&T Stadium, going crazy, high fiving all these people and everything. Why? Because we share chest bumping, going nuts. Why? Because we share this affinity for this team.
Yes.
Right? Walk out the door. Probably don't share anything else. Right? Politics is very much that way, right? We highlight a few things, some key points, and we gather around those things. But these are people, oftentimes you wouldn't even invite them into your home for a meal.
Yes. That's a really good point.
So I need y'all to just dial it back a little bit. If
Yeah.
this is creating tension in your house, because your spouse is someone who, in fact, you would invite for a meal
Right.
and have, right? So,
Yes. And it is also true that no one candidate can satisfy every concern, every issue, every thing that we bring to bear, on our personal lives, on our
question.
families, our communities, on our lives, on our country.
Yeah.
Not one of them completely can address each of those things, right?
Yeah.
And so we
right.
have to consider that these people are not worth your marriage.
that's right. And because, it's such a good point you make, because every decision that you make, every person that you decide you're going to vote for, support, you're always making a compromise,
Yes.
right?
Always.
You're selecting something and saying, hey, you know what? These things are important enough that I'm going to support this person, even though I don't necessarily agree with those other things. There's always a compromise involved, and if there is never a compromise involved in your political decisions, then I would suggest that you might not be telling the truth.
Yeah, that's
If
good.
you say there's no compromise, right? But those are based on how you vote. In your marriage, are you willing to compromise the marriage for the politics? All right. So
Yeah. And I think,
Which-
oh, go ahead.
go ahead. 'Cause I'm about to
No, I
hit
was
the-
just
I'm
going
about
to
hit
say,
the point.
because what can happen is it will plant a seed of negativity, right? And so what happens is that small difference becomes a huge difference because you focus on it and you feed it, right? And so then you start to do things like talk to other people or affiliate with groups that think like you, separate from your spouse. And you may even start to do things like criticize your spouse or criticize their choices or talk about them, in their presence in terms of doing all these things. So it is important to rein in the negativity and focus on all of the positive aspects of this person that God gifted you with, right? This person that you love, that you loved before election season, and that you will love beyond election season.
Let's hope. So, know the game.
Yes.
Move to the middle. Pursue and acknowledge truth.
Yes.
Embrace nuance.
Embrace nuance.
Lastly, protect your space.
Ah, yes.
Protect your space. Don't bring external fights into your home. They don't care about your marriage. And I don't care if the values say we care about marriage. Your marriage, they don't care.
No.
They just don't.
Yes.
All right, so
Yes.
think about it. Why would you destroy what you have in order to support something that literally a campaign that literally does not know your marriage exists?
Perhaps doesn't even know that you exist.
Think about that. Don't know you exist, right? But we're battling sometimes. Okay?
Yes.
So, Matthew 19, verses 3 through 6. This is for you, BJ. Some Pharisees came to test him. We're talking about Jesus. They asked, is it lawful for a man to divorce his wife for any and every reason?
Yes.
Haven't you read, he replied, that at the beginning, the Creator, God, made them male and female, and said, for this reason, a man will leave his father and mother and be united to his wife, and the two will become one flesh.
Yeah.
So they are no longer two, but one flesh. Therefore, what God has joined together, let no one separate.
Yes. Or put asunder. Depends on your
No
version.
one put asunder, right? So in all y'all weddings, that's what they said. Now, why we do that, right? But this happens, and this is actually a very important point for so many things. To include, and it's probably wrong to drag them into this conversation, but to include your kids.
Yes.
Do not allow anything or anyone to separate you, because your strength comes from that 3-cord strand, right? Husband, wife, and God. Like, with that combination, you can overcome any challenge. You can deal with anything you need to deal with. However, if you allow external things to come into your home and begin to erode that, right? If God is absent from that,
Yeah.
you got a problem. You got a real problem.
Yeah, and Patrick Jackson, thanks for joining us. I mean, this whole idea of keeping the main thing, I mean, we've heard that many times,
Yeah.
right? Staying focused on what is most important, reining in the negativity, doing all these things. So if you joined us late, we are talking about when you're in a marriage or a long-term committed relationship and you discover or you know that your spouse is on the other side of the aisle, so to speak, right? And can a bipartisan relationship survive? Can it thrive? And so all of these things you talked about, knowing the game, right? What they are actually out to do, what they're trying to convince us of, what the goal is of politics, political campaigns, and politicians. Then stay away from the fringes, or would you say meet in the middle? Did you say meet in the middle?
I did.
Okay, or meet in the middle, right? Avoiding those extreme viewpoints and consuming those extreme viewpoints, because we consume whatever we consume, we become, and so you have
Oh,
to be
that's good.
careful about.
Whoa.
You have
gotta
to be
repeat
careful
that.
about
You gotta repeat
about
that.
what you're taking in. I said whatever we consume, we become.
Yeah.
You have to be careful about what you're taking in, because unknowingly you can be radicalized. Yes, I said it.
Oh.
In your sleep. And what I mean by that is little by little, bit by bit, inch by inch, time, minute after minute, as you continue to consume and it's feeding you, that's what your mind is now becoming. So just be careful of that. Be mindful of that. Your spouse is not the enemy. If you've ever been to a Weekend to Remember, you've heard us say that. And I feel like I'm doing a commercial right now. Don't let us forget to tell you about Weekend to Remember. I have a reminder for you.
Okay.
But your spouse is not your enemy. You have to remember that and make that the forefront. Even if you get into, you might say, well, me and my spouse, we love to debate. We just love to get into it. That's fine, but keep it positive and make sure that everybody leaves intact. Nobody is destroyed. That's not the point, but that you're both heard, understood, and respected. That is so important, regardless of what you're talking about. And so I got to, pursue and acknowledge the truth, separating fallacies from truth, embrace nuance, right? Making sure that you are sifting through the fodder, as it were. And then protecting your space. Protecting your space.
Yeah.
There is nothing more important than your marriage.
Well, one thing you said I think is really so important. It reminded me of something we need to say, and that is like cut back on the coverage, right? It's easy to, from sun up to sundown, from the time you wake up to the time you go to sleep, to be consuming news outlet after news outlet, story after story. The truth is, if you hear the first 30 minutes of news in the morning, generally speaking, you've heard what you're going to hear for the rest of the day. And so I encourage us all to actually cut back on how much we're taking in.
Yeah.
Because what Wendy said is so important. What you consume is what you become. I remember back in 2020, or was it 2016? I forget. Maybe it was 2016. Just like round the clock. I used to be a news junkie,
Yes.
but I realized you said yes with such emphasis.
It's true.
But oh man, news junkie. But I realized it was really impacting my mood. It was impacting my energy, everything. And so I decided that was just unsustainable. And so I just started trying to take in, trying to get to know what's happening in the morning time, take some in, then cut it off. And I got to the point where I might watch an hour of news in a day and not watch it again for several days. And the way that news cycles work, if you did that, you really wouldn't miss much.
No.
Actually.
No.
But what I found is that it helped me to dial down just that internal tension, that need to, because there's all kind of things you hear about you can't immediately put your hands on and do anything about, but it helped me to just kind of shift my focus to focus on things that were more productive and things that perhaps I could do versus consuming the same story over and over and over and over and hearing the questions from different angles over and over and over again. So
Yeah.
I encourage everybody to give that a try.
That's when you tuned into the Good News Network. You
I
remember
did.
that?
I did discover the Good News Network, right?
Yes.
So, and that was actually
yeah.
helpful.
And I personally love to see baby animals. Anything that gives me a mental departure from being, bombarded with all of the things of the world, right? The things of the world will care for themselves. You don't have to carry all that. If you are truly putting the main thing first, in this case, seeking God first above all else, then things will fall in order. But I can guarantee you that before the invention of television and before the invention of newspapers and before the invention of what was it, the Pony Express, and before we were spreading all of the news and trying to gather everybody together, what we did was we spent time together just talking and talking about each other and our hopes for the future. Where, you know, when we expose ourselves to so many things that as you said, don't directly impact us sometimes, then we get so disillusioned about what our reality is. We are in a daily struggle and battle to create a healthy, whole, positive reality. And everything that you take in is fighting to combat that, right? Everything. You can turn on any news anywhere, and I guarantee you there's going to be something horrible and negative that happened, or the weather's going to be bad, or something bad is coming. You know, everything could be good right now, but a hurricane is coming in 2 weeks. I mean, you know, there's always this effort to put us in a posture of action, right? And it's, you must do something and you must do it now. Slow down, protect your space.
Yeah, good news doesn't sell as well as bad news. That's just a fact. All right.
Yes.
All right, one more thing, and you know, I'm looking at David Tyson's comment, "Keep her safe," combined with Byron Jackson's, you know, including in-laws, family, friends.
Yeah. Yes.
I don't care where you stand on your political spectrum. Do not allow your family to go on the attack against your spouse.
Oh, that's good.
Listen here, like, no matter what you believe, you and your spouse got to be a united front. You have to be an impenetrable vault. You're not married to them.
Nope.
Right? So, know your family, because guess what, y'all? I'm sure your family loves you. I'm sure they do. But if they allow all these things, if they drag those conversations into the mud, right? Every time you come around, and they gotta make a point. They don't love your marriage, not enough. So you have to love your spouse and your marriage enough to protect it from those external influences, to include in-laws, family, and friends. No doubt, BJ. Thanks for that.
Yeah, that's good. And so, you know, we could go down the whole list of all of the things that have us really focused right now on what's going to happen next in the world, particularly in our country, right? But we can't allow things to magnify their importance, because there is nothing more important than your marriage. And what happens is, when we're anxious, when we're concerned about the economy, when we don't know if we can afford milk next week, or whatever the latest thing is, whether it's gun violence or anything else, those things can magnify the issues, but then they also have a tendency to magnify the other little differences in your marriage. It's hard enough for us to thrive and get over the little things within our marriages daily. We don't need an additional thing to try to create a wedge between us. So when you talk about that unified front, it is so important to put safeguards in place, boundaries in place, and people in place that will feed your marriage positively, safeguard your marriage when you're not around, and will deposit things that will help you grow and thrive. Everything that you take in should be for your marriage, not just for you. When we talk about being selfish in marriage, this is one of those things. You may be divided down the middle, but you can't be selfish about this. You must be selfless. That is all. I'm going to get off my step stool.
Are you sure? Are you sure?
Because the thing is, we can disagree on a lot of things, but even when we disagree, you have to always remember that you love that person, right? It's not about, we disagree, I was right, you were wrong. You smush it in their face, you mush them in the forehead, and you go, I won. No, you didn't.
No, you didn't. Because that love is rooted in a covenant. There's a way that you do marriage.
Yes.
There's just a way you do it, right? And so that covenant requires that we love in a Christ-like way. It requires that we exhibit the fruits of the Spirit. It requires that we, love in the way that 1 Corinthians indicates. As a husband, it requires that you die for your wife in the way that Christ loves. I mean, love your wife the way that Christ loved church and die for her. It's a lot,
Yeah.
right? But when it boils down to it, it's really simple. And so when you're outside of it, it's pretty obvious. So with that, I think we've said enough.
We've said too much.
For sure. I think I'm tired now.
Yes. Hey, Ron Harvey,
I think
thanks
I'm
for
gonna go-
jumping in here.
Let's go watch the news.
Yeah, no, we're gonna watch the game. It's
Yeah.
a fight it's a bird fight. It's the Falcons against the Eagles.
The Eagles,
That would be interesting. I don't know if they've done that on like Nat Geo Wild or something. Which would win between a falcon and an eagle? Anyway,
Yeah, that's
as
a
I
great
digress.
question. I don't know. I think a Falcon wins
Raider.
on the speed.
Yes, well, we appreciate you being here. Hey, Tammy Shepard,
Tammy.
my friend, thanks for being here. If you think somebody else could benefit from our little discussion, please share this, and we'd love for you to come back and join us next Monday night.
Indeed, we would. So I think we're going to pray and get on out of here.
Yes.
All right. Let's go. Heavenly Father, we come tonight just thanking you for being God. Thank you for blessing us. We just ask you bless the time we've had tonight. We ask that you bless every couple here, God, everyone listening live, everyone who will be on the replay. We ask that you help them to seek you first. We ask that you help them to love in the way that you love us, and that love transcends anything that the world can throw at us, God. We ask you to bless every home, every family, and we'll be sure to give you all the honor, the glory, and the praise. We thank you, Lord. We love you. We pray these and all blessings in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. So I forgot to mention, and I put it on our page when we talked about it last week.
Yeah.
You can check out our page or go to, you could Google Weekend to Remember or go to Family Life. But tonight is the last night. Tonight at midnight is the last time that you'll be able to get 50% off the Weekend to Remember if you want to attend this fall. And so you could choose anywhere that you want to go. You don't have to choose Charleston. That's what we'll be in December. But tonight's the last night for 50% off. So I wanted to make sure I got that in there because we want your marriage to thrive. We don't want, the cost to be prohibitive. So, hey, Rella, you have a good night too. So
Yeah.
that's all. Until next week, have a blessed week, and we will see you on Monday night.
See y'all.